that before a test. There's things in there that go way beyond in theory and not practicality. And I like to teach politics from a sense of practicality and actually using it. And not so much the theory of politics, especially when you're taking a course that's beyond political theory at this point and you're in state and local, you're on to like the next level, some of you. So I wanna make sure we're applying what you're doing. So even in this section, I'll give you a good example in the book was, there's a chart on moralistic, idealistic approaches we were talking about. I am never gonna ask you that. I'll tell you right now, it is utter nonsense, and we don't care what each state, if they have a theory that way. I don't even know why that's in there. You're never gonna talk about that at like a council meeting or a, so I'm really going to take the approach with state and local, and squeezing federal into it, obviously, of how those three layers work together. So you get a sense in this class, in this course of, you know, what does it mean to be local government? Is that the state's rights? Is that the federal government's rights? And you have a better, clear understanding of that in day-to-day knowledge, or something you hear on the news and you understand your taxes, you know, when they talk about healthcare, which is still going round and round and round.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean for the states versus, you know, what does that mean across the country with the exchanges that they talk about? And you always hear, especially, you know, the president and congressional members always saying to you on the television, well, that's up to the states, right? Where they turn around and go, well, maybe the federal government would do it. But they don't explain how and why the states should do it, or why they shouldn't do it, and why they pick certain topics and certain policies for the states, and other ones they're like, nope. So we're gonna learn more of that style, and I'll dive in, especially in the back when we get to like healthcare, education, things like that. And you guys will even do some lobbying with each other and understanding some real life examples once you get up and running. But if you're reading certain things in there and you feel like, what did they just say in that chapter? I'm probably doing the same thing with you. Because a lot of times we have a tendency in academia to write in this academic speak. And nobody, if you haven't noticed in most of your textbooks, nobody ever talks like that. You're reading it like that's not even something in conversation, and bless you. And in this type of discipline, you do a lot of communication, a lot of dialogue, and a lot of talking. And nobody, I can tell you, in this field, working in it, does any of that. So I will kind of piecemeal and take things through. On the Google Drive will be the updated slides to this. I heard a young lady ask the professor that was in here for anatomy before about the slides that go with the textbook. I will put all those there. If I'm supposed to or not, I'm able to do it, so I don't care. I get them free. So I will put them up on the doc. That's why I like using Google Doc better. I mean, the Google Drive better. I will put them up that complement your book to make it easier to outline chapters too. Okay? I am one that will share the wealth, even if I get like study guides on the book or the chapter, I'll put whatever I can find on there so you don't have to pay for it. Make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I like being generous. And they say people in government aren't generous. In fairness, a lot of this is your tax dollars, so you paid for a lot of these things already. Looking at chapter 1, the common theme of chapter 1 when you're looking at it is just kind of giving you an introduction. Now the part that I do like, and I did share this with my class before they changed it, is when they talk about Sierra Blair, who, that is a true story, last year she became out of her college dorm an actual state representative. She was even too young, but they did her ability to run, she would be of age by the time she was elected and the election happened. So she was allowed. But she was 17, going on 18 years old, and campaigned out of her dorm room, and she took down a senior, I think she was 3 terms in a row of an incumbent in her 40s, and she wiped the floor with her and took her out and became a state representative as she's a college student for West Virginia. So she is the youngest that has ever served. And each state does it differently with certain, election rules and so forth. But in West Virginia, it is legal. So she is a college student, as you'll see in the textbook and her pictures here. She looks like an average college student walking around in one of your classes. She actually is a state representative. And I think it's such a great example because people always say, who are these people, right? I still do, because it changes so much too, especially at the state level. We're not as familiar with our state representatives compared to federal. And you definitely don't see your city council folks on a daily basis or your township folks on a daily basis. So when you get to see and visualize who possibly some of these state representatives are, it kind of gives you a little bit to think about, that it is possible it gives you a little bit of hope that it is possible that the average person or even the average college student can win a seat. She did it, she broke the mold. And she ran, I saw her story before it was in the book, and she ran a highly conservative campaign, and all of her friends were extremely liberal. Some even voted for her regardless. So she said at her college and on campus was the opposite of her ideology and her beliefs and a lot of her platforms. So she had an uphill battle, not only with age, but even her age group with that. So it's phenomenal to see that somebody can actually do that, regardless of being, quote unquote, the underdog. She did it. So you have somebody that is a model. And I love those stories because I get tired of people making excuses when they say, you gotta be a white male with gray hair. That wears a suit, and unfortunately when you walk around Washington you do see a lot of that at the federal level, and all these things, and people make excuses, and I said, well actually you have the most diverse Congress ever right now at the federal level. You wouldn't know it because we talk about it like it's the worst ever, but when you put the statistics up, they don't lie. You have the most diversity in there, you have the most women ever, and same with race, ethnicity, and religion. It's very diverse, and especially if you take those numbers and compare them to the numbers of percentages represented in the country. They do parallel. But we like to strategically sometimes in politics take statistics, and my colleagues that teach stats always verify this for me. Stats are only as good as the person asking the question. Stats are only as good as the person who's giving the background with those numbers. So a lot of times the numbers are correct, but not the storyboard going with it sometimes. So as you do learn about politics, and we talked about this morning in my American national government, try to look past the surface and to ask yourself, is this correct? Because the average American isn't doing that right now. They're taking whatever face value they're seeing on social media and on television, and they're just taking it in. And they're so frustrated because they're taking it in. I go like this, and I go time out, let me read about this a little bit and see what's really going on. So I hope that in this class, I'm gonna give you some of those tools so that you can challenge something and see the validity of it. You can see that a state would never do that, There's a slippery slope with some of the things people say, and especially when they bring the courts into it. I always laugh because usually when you slap a lawsuit, that's just to give it media time. Half the time they know they're not gonna win. They know the rules. They just do it so that what do they wanna do? They wanna accomplish public opinion, right? If I get all these people on board that think it's illegal, then they're gonna be like protesting and writing their senators and doing all these things, but they never told you if it's right or not. And then when I've asked students, they're like, I don't even know if it is. But you've been out there with a sign for 2 days, but you don't know if it's right or not. So I usually tell folks, I certainly would want to know if I'm out there correctly or not. And always be prepared because somebody's always there to challenge you, right? Your opposition. So you want to make sure you're correct to a point, or they're going to have egg on their face a little bit when they find out they're not. So I hope I can give you some of those skills to do that. But definitely if you haven't read chapter 1, read her story in the beginning, because I do like that part of chapter 1. But don't worry about when it gets into, I think it's on page 13, when it gets into moralistic, individualistic, and traditionalistic classifications that one gentleman made. Not to discredit him, but nobody ever uses his classifications out there for anything. So we're not gonna do it either. So what I wanna do today to kind of get it in motion and kind of skip some of those things and do something that's more important is I want you guys to get in groups of 4 and 5. This is like this morning when everybody looks at each other and goes, what? This is the hardest task right here. You have to actually get up, I know, meet somebody that's different to you. Get up, 4 or 5, huddle together, walk across the room, do something rogue, go crazy. Introduce yourself. You're all with the same goals in here, right? Taking a college course. Randomly get up and walk across the room, I would. Sit with somebody totally different across the room. Invite somebody in. 4 or 5, I don't care. I won't hold you to the number. Come on. We got 2 minutes. This room's tough, so just try to do the best you can. Hi.
Sure, thanks.
Ignore pen. I just want to make sure you know where you're going. So mix it up. And my advice is if I do this quite often, so don't get cozy all the time. Next time jump in with somebody else you don't know. You're going to get better ideas that way. If you keep going to the same people, it's like watching the same network, right? Then you become sterile in the network. That's not good. Then they got you. So you got to mix it up all the time. So if I do this, I do this quite often, just make sure that you mix it up. What I want you to do is you can write in your notebook or you can have one person, but I want you to make a line and I want you guys to brainstorm together what you feel are major roles of your federal government and what are major roles of your state local. You don't have to piece apart down to the county and the city. Just go with state local as one column and federal as the other. And brainstorm together examples or things that
I'll
you
do the writing.
feel their role is in, or tasks, or jobs, or responsibilities they do in those 2 formats. And you're gonna take about 10 minutes to do that. Get the wheels turning, because that's actually what your chapter is trying to do with you. We're actually gonna do this.
All right, so state and local and federal.
So federal.
Okay.
This will help you to understand.
Okay.
State and local.
And don't be afraid to be right or wrong and all that, just start brainstorming.
For the state.
The like state specific laws. Okay.
Put like roads under state and local.
Okay.
You could also put tax rates under state and local.
Okay. Roads. What was the other one?
You could also do tax and
What was your last
Yeah.
one?
And you can be
Roads and-
specific, you can be vague, whatever
taxes.
you want.
Taxes.
Yeah.
That's what, okay.
Don't they also like make the school systems?
Is that state? State school system?
Yeah.
But like education.
Okay. And so for federal healthcare, right?
Yeah, federal does help.
At least to a point anyway. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if food stamp, like, I don't know if food stamps is state or federal.
I think it's
I think it might be
They
both.
could be federal and state.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
welfare is like, might be, you could put it under both, I guess.
yeah, because it is federal, but it's allocated by the state.
Yeah.
You could do like section 8 housing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So they would border both, so I'll put them down here, like food stamps and housing. Crossover.
brain.
Yeah.
No, because like I'm normally like a night owl, so like I go to bed at like 3 a.m. and I wake up.
That's me too.
Clock,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like I'm like on a completely different schedule now.
It's gonna take you a week to.
Oh my god, yeah, it's terrible.
And I'm the same way.
I'm with you. I was
Like
also
I'm running
saying,
on like 30%.
It is hard to get into.
Like it's terrible. Like I'm in my sociology class and my brain's just running on like 30% and I have like nothing. So like
It'll take you a while.
I'm like comatose.
Yeah, it's like during the day it's black and white, and then at 2 a.m. you're thinking quantum physics, like you're. Yeah. Okay, so.
Anything else for federal?
Yeah, we only have 2.
You only wish. You'd be here for weeks.
I mean, you could, for federal, you could put, international trade.
Yeah. Okay.
Military.
Okay.
And you can put under state National Guard. Because I think each state like is in charge
Yeah.
of the National Guard.
They got their weekend warriors.
Your weight. That's a good one. Domestic. It's domestic.
That's sort of like the caveman. He took like an hour to just get smarter.
What was it for state? Oh, the reserves. The
Yeah.
the local.
Actually, the reserves are federal.
And the
Guard,
reserves.
the guard is state.
The guard.
But
Okay.
it's,
Guard is-
Okay.
Um,
Got it. Got it. Okay.
You could put like under states. You could put like things like I don't know how you classify it, like marijuana legalization because each state does it differently.
Okay.
You could also put that under
And then,
federal too.
well, yeah, then you can put under federal like scheduled drugs.
Yeah.
You know, they ran out of that stuff. They legalized it 1 week. Next week they were out. They literally had state emergency. They had to get like trucks and stuff. Colorado, wow. Yeah, wow. That's something.
Pennsylvania stroke.
Well, because I was reading their
Very different culture in Pennsylvania. That's why it's always a purple state. It is so completely.
So,
What about agriculture? Like our farmers, our crops.
okay, so ag state.
What's that? Agriculture. Like our crops and farmers and.
So the federal does. I think they do subsidies like for corn, like for to make corn oil and stuff like that. And then I don't know what states do. I'm blanking.
So we think a little bit of both.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
I know the federal has something to do with it. They do produce subsidies and whatnot.
Import, export.
That's federal. Yeah, in this state, they're getting medical marijuana, but it's like, it's gonna take forever.
They had 6. You're allowed 6.
Yeah.
There's
There's
one
this-
by me, I believe, in Barnesville.
And there's one in Bethlehem,
Yeah,
out in one of the,
in the Northeast.
yeah.
And that used to be like an urgent care.
Mhm.
They're flipping.
Yeah, they're like all over the place now. They're like on every street corner, like every.
What's fascinating by me is they've made these, and my doctor's doing this to save people money. They send them to like it's pharmacist, however, it goes around the drug company, so they're mixing it there. And they save you money to mix it generic on the spot. And you can save like $1,000.
That's
It
weird.
happened to my mom because it was $1,000 after her insurance for something,
Right.
for like a topical steroid. And it's like an experimental, and they did it there, and it cost her $30. The same thing, out the name of.
Yeah.
But those are popping up where they're mixing.
Because it's like,
And I said it's like medieval times, you have
looking at that.
after, yeah.
Aftercare, yeah.
Can you reach? I think everybody got it.
It's fascinating.
What's that?
Cause like I went to the store down in Philly, and like they said they had, I guess I forget who they said came in, but said they had to sell this juice or this soda for a certain amount.
Oh, like soda taxes. Is what
Okay,
it's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Taxes, I guess.
You could just sales tax in general.
Yeah.
We already covered that.
Yeah. Well, so you put sales tax, that's definitely a state.
Yeah.
That's garbage. That juice tax.
Yeah.
That's like, in my mind, it's like, if you can't regulate yourself,
That started in New York, yeah.
it's sort of like
Yeah.
it's like, so my friend and I were talking, it's like the maternity state. And it makes me think of this podcast. So Malcolm Gladwell does this podcast called Revisionist History. He's talking about the old school McDonald's fries, how they used to like fry them in beef tallow and it was like really good. And now they fry them in some weird oil, vegetable oil, canola oil thing. They're not as good. And he said the only reason why McDonald's started doing that was because this guy had a lawsuit because he didn't want to change it. Instead of like understanding that it was his fault for his diet, because he was from the Midwest
no,
eating
it's
like
never
shit
the
for
consumer's
years. Right? No, he starts like a mass corporate like lawsuit. He goes on this crusade. He was like he put ads in the New York Times and posted all this stuff. And finally McDonald's was like, all right, I guess we have to
And
change
the
it.
media will destroy them.
They crucified.
Yeah.
They crucified. Him. So.
And that's why they settle in court half the time, because they just want to hush it before
And
it
it's so
gets.
stupid because like
Same thing when, I remember, because my husband was ballistic, Kraft macaroni and cheese, they were changing the formula because of the dye of the orange color. He went crazy, and to this day, it does not taste the same.
Yeah.
And I agree with him,
because
I'm
I'm like everything is the
like,
same.
make a healthy option, don't take away.
Everything, but everything in
It's
moderation.
their body,
Like
whatever
you
they want to
can,
eat.
like you
Yeah.
can eat
on the
McDonald's like
box.
once a month, like once, like you know what I mean,
But I
like once
agree
in a
with
while. You're not supposed to like, you don't eat every day, but you have people that don't.
As long as it's labeled.
It has to be because we don't have to and people do choose what they eat. So like you can't try to.
And I agree with you about self-control. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but that's a personal responsibility.
Like where's mine? Like I look like
That's
that's
why people eat snacks though.
Yeah.
I look like a busted can of Pillsbury croissants, but I know that that's my fault. And eventually,
That's
I
why
have
your
to work
school
on
lunch program went,
it.
Yep.
Yo,
Yeah.
so
because people didn't like the fact you were dictating what they
Well,
were
th-
putting.
well, there you go.
I
Well, that would
I
go
just
under
gave you
school
one.
system. No, well, we have school systems, so.
Yeah.
So I went to middle school
But,
and part of
um,
high school in Chicago, and the food was so bad there. We used to take the hot dogs, right, and like some of the food, and you could bounce it on the floor, and you would literally dribble like a basketball. Like I'm not even
We
playing.
just had one option, or the alternate, which was always peanut butter and jelly, or on a good day, it was like a slice of pizza.
Yeah.
But you had the section trays, like the plastic, like you see the retro, that's what we did.
Yep.
You went down, and
Yeah.
it was either milk or chocolate milk.
You know what's wild though?
And I'm allergic to milk, so I couldn't.
So yeah, so am I. Well, I'm not allergic. I'm not
So
allergic.
it was before juice boxes, I had like a thermos.
You know what's
You know how embarrassing this is as a kid.
What about understate the smoking?
right? Smoking it. You know what's
Smoking and non-smoking.
And then I broke it, and I was like traumatized.
like my grandparents were at the school. Like the school lunches were nice. Like they were decent. Like they ate good. Like they
Ours
had,
was actually good.
they had people that like whipped up like.
Like, I'll be
good
the first to
food.
say the hot lunches were actually decent. They really were.
But now-
They did give you a balance,
But it's
like you had
because-
fruit, you had vegetables,
But,
everybody ate it.
but they can't season it, so everything tastes like horrible.
Well, and it also became, allergies are not individual responsibility anymore. Now everybody needs to know your allergy because of litigation, so.
We live in a
we're-
litigious
these
society.
allergies have always been there. My mom's allergic to everything.
I know, like,
And her thing is, that's on me.
do you know something wild? I'm
If I
allergic.
go to a restaurant,
That's what
I
I don't
have to
get.
ask the questions or I die.
Exactly.
Right, like I'm allergic to gelatin, so I have to be like really careful.
Yeah, so
Like,
if
like
you
with
just
desserts
know-
and stuff, I gotta be like doing one of these. Like I can't take any meds that have like gel capsules in them, like nothing like that.
But people are afraid that you will sue them.
It's like, dude, if I accidentally eat gelatin, like that's on me. Like,
Right.
It's just like going to a restaurant, being allergic to peanut butter, and ordering something with peanut butter in it.
For the
Yes.
possibility.
yo, I work at the bar, right?
It's
Like,
personal
are you
responsibility.
gonna stop making that restaurant stop selling that food? Like,
You'll have that, you have now, and you guys will go over things in this class, of when it's social personal responsibility and when it's the government's responsibility.
Yep.
It's a slippery slope.
So I work in a bar, right? I work as a prep cook in a bar, and we have people that come in because it's like half of it's like an old school bar, and the other room is like a fine dining kind of area. And we have these people that come in and want like gluten free, da 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 da. And I'm like, and one night like we were slammed. And this woman came in and like. So like we get our tickets come out on there's two sheets. Come out on black and white ticket for the line, and then the yellow ticket for the salad people. And on the black and white ticket we get like a red thing that says like, you know, any modifiers. This
Yeah, you
woman's
guys had a nicer system than mine. I'm
well,
jealous.
because it's all computerized.
Yeah, but I mean, I like that you have the color coding.
Well, it's funny because like I'm colorblind, so
Yeah.
it's all one thing. But anyway, so like this woman's modifiers were this long, and I finally yelled down to my chef. I'm like, yo, why don't we just go in Milwaukee and get her a tray of ice and put it and give it to her? Like we're just gonna give her an ice cube. It's gluten free, you know, with everything else free.
What about like those ridiculous laws that states have, like you can't own a goat or something?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
They're
those
still
really.
There's still laws.
I think they're
Like-
just so old.
Blue chip laws. Like you can't buy alcohol on Sundays. Like where I'm from in Indiana, you can't buy alcohol on Sundays.
Just left Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, you can't do anything
They're
though.
bad. This
Past-
Especially in this area, everybody at all the colleges used to drive over to Phillipsburg
that's what I would
on Sunday and come back.
Yeah.
But the police are sitting there waiting.
Wait, would that be a federal thing, like owning animals?
That's a zoning.
More of a state.
That's
Yeah.
state. Yeah, it's your zoning for commercial activity. Usually that's your local.
Oh yeah, if you brought beer back from Jersey, that's technically interstate commerce at that point, and then you're like, ooh, yeah, that's a L.
I had friends get nailed for that.
Gay rights,
I went
marriage.
to Middleburg.
Yeah, that's
Marriage, yeah.
that's federal.
Wouldn't that be both? Because certain states it's legal, and some states it's not legal.
Precedence with that.
Do we think it's borderline both?
It's both because like there's a Supreme Court decision. I don't know the name.
Okay, once you start getting your list, you can send somebody up that has somewhat decent handwriting. You write on the board here bullet items of what you've come up with federal and state. So we can all see them.
I had.
Try to make it concise.
One of you guys want to do it?
Summarize.
You're
I
gonna
have
make me
terrible
do it.
handwriting.
You can
No,
elaborate.
honestly, I would.
Handwriting isn't that great.
I literally was.
Somebody that
I
can
mean,
kind of
I can
print
try.
All right.
somewhat
I can do
okay.
it, but my thing is not. I'll do it. I'll do it. Just kidding.
I was
It's terrible,
literally
but
Just to
whatever.
share the responsibility.
You can share it.
Yeah.
I had a
You can do
constant.
state on your federal.
So I took AP government politics. It's like basically a constitutional law class. And I was told I'm a teacher because we write these like summaries of like federal things. And one day like I hand wrote it. I was like in a rush. And then he asked me, he goes, I have to tell you something. Your handwriting looks like somebody with cerebral palsy. He said it in front of the whole class. I'm like, yeah, okay.
No, just tell me you're a doctor.
No, I just like no because here's the thing. One, I'm not
English teachers can't.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they don't. Their handwriting isn't that great either.
I'm left-handed, so like I'm due from the beginning.
I tell people it's
Because
not
everything I
bad.
write
You
just
can
gets
give me the
smeared.
assignment type.
Yeah.
Same with a gentleman I had this morning, he's got a couple of them cast
Yeah.
on. I go, "You can type it."
Yeah.
I had one guy last semester had the smallest print I think I've ever seen in my life.
like
It's
2
immaculate, like
Yeah.
stamped.
Yeah.
It's so, I called it architecture handwriting.
Yeah.
Architects write this perfect print on plans. They're used to doing it.
That's how my friend writes.
So it was like so tiny, but it
My
was
friend's
like
name.
Yeah, it was really prolific.
yeah.
And I'm like, how do you write like that? Like, but he's left-handed though.
I don't know how he wrote that small.
How?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, if you watch Criminal Minds, that's like serial killer handwriting, you know, like,
You can literally see like.
Type A.
yeah, that's, you know.
Week 3 of the semester, my shit was black. all the way.
Highly intelligent, go to the
Yeah.
profile.
Yeah, because I remember the one episode where they were tracking some serial killer, and he had that meticulous,
One day he was just, like, writing
and he had
things.
journals upon journals upon journals, and they had Spencer doing the reading because he could speed read, but like the notes were so meticulous.
You have to be meticulous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pull it off.
Yep.
The only thing I can do, I can switch it to baseball. Like when I play baseball, I can hit from both sides of the plate, and I can play golf both ways. That's it.
getting used
My
to
problem
having
is
to
like
decipher.
I don't pick up like if I'm writing like handwriting
Yeah.
something, I don't pick up the pen. I just kind of
You
like
just keep going.
It's like
Like a
combination of cursive and print.
I had a student writing
Thank
cursive
you.
last semester, and he was traditionally, I was shocked that he knew cursive
Yeah,
at this
it's
point.
it's
And
wild.
his was perfect, like he took handwriting class.
Like I feel like
But some of the students never saw like, because it's in that transition, I guess. of,
it's
like,
it's
nobody
wild
does it
because
anymore.
like I learned cursive, but like I
We had a
have
handwriting class.
I'm the oldest of 6 siblings, and like my sister and I learned cursive, but my 2 younger brothers
Yeah.
know nothing.
I'm glad cursive went on the
Sixth
wayside.
grade teachers
Oh.
do handwriting in Japanese
Cursive,
words.
cursive has made my life so much easier.
Yeah.
Like in terms of taking notes in class, because
Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
typing
I can't-
replaced cursive, I think, almost entirely.
People aren't typing anymore.
And see, you don't, like, I could read cursive only
So
because
I
my,
get like emoticons on paper.
Yeah.
yo, that would. I'm sorry, but like if I saw that, like it would take
You don't
every.
even want to know the sources of it.
It would take it.
Everybody says it's
Yeah.
actually a source.
Yeah.
You know.
There's a.
And I was like, in all my years, I've never seen somebody, people say it all the time, everybody says. They actually cite it, everybody says.
Yeah. Yeah.
How many
Blew my
drinks?
mind.
How many drinks did it take you to finish drinking a paper?
When I do papers, I do them in batches, so I compare because you'll start going like crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, if you tried to do one.
You have to do them, that's why it takes a long time, because you want to walk away for a little bit.
Yeah.
So when faculty takes a while, we're actually going to figure it out.
We figured. Yeah.
And they start sounding the same if it's the same
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at the floor, see what we got. And I will ask for clarification, or if I want you to expand on something, so feel free to kind of shout it out at me if I ask that question. Whoever wrote it. Okay, so federal. Not give financial aid. Is that an opinionated piece, or is that? You guys want to elaborate? Not financial aid.
Nobody on
Is
that.
that somebody still feeling the effects of not receiving their aid yet? Is that where we're at? You're hoping I have a contact? Is that what you're doing? Like, can you speed that up? But seriously, I want to talk about it in serious nature. Financial aid, federal. You do have state and federal. You guys know that, right? FAFSA is federal.
Yeah.
And you have federal loans, which is financial aid. I know that we all want to get grants, but loans are also considered financial aid, so are scholarships. Anything awarded is considered. And the reason they put federal loans in there is because they do vote on the percentage points on the interest of your loan after you're paying, which is still the lowest you will find. They keep it low, they haven't really increased it. It's a lot lower than a credit card would be in its APR. But financial aid is definitely the deciding factor when you're talking if they give it to you or not. Yes, you are correct. They can deny you. They also write the parameters as far as the federal, what the parameters are to receive grants. And a lot of times we don't like the parameters. For a lot with, and I'm the first to say this, and this is my student affairs side of the house when I used to work here in student affairs, it is very difficult to get a grant at this point. So you're not alone. It is hard.
Yeah.
And most of the time, if you're in the bracket of getting a grant, you wish you weren't in that bracket to get the grant too. So it's kind of, it's tough.
Yeah.
But they also use residency, right, on the federal and the state, because I get international students that grumble. Do I have any international students in here? They can't get any, so they grumble all the time, and they have to actually come to us with an upfront massive amount of thousands in their bank account to even be accepted here. Talk about fairness. They have to be wealthy or they can't come here. So, I say that not to make you feel bad, but think about there are some people walking around that, had to even go another step to try to get here. And they don't get loans either, they can't get any, from the federal aid, they're visitors. DEA, what about the DEA? I heard marijuana discussions, what
Yeah.
about it? course you're gonna talk about marijuana.
Yep.
I'm no dummy.
Yeah.
I went to college. No. What about DEA? What's their role, federal government? Do you guys know? What they say goes. It's that easy.
Mhm.
Hate to tell you. And I had students go, but in Colorado, da, 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 da. And I said, yeah, I know. And they can decide how they want to enforce and implement what the law is, of how they want to do it. They can't change the law. So your federal is going to put the guidelines on what they need to do, and how they need to educate, and how they implement, and what they need to follow, and what strict guidelines, and they almost have to go through a whole university on it. And it's very, very strict, and your DEA surveillance is them 24/7. Yes.
So then, what kind of, so just off curiosity, so then what kind of power would somebody like the Attorney General, like Jeff Sessions, like what kind of power would he have then to go into Colorado and say, hey, like, this program has problems, we don't like it at the federal level,
You need to take it away, or
to you take it away, roll it back, make it harder for people, you know, whatever, I don't know.
It's very difficult for them to create a whole nother law. So
Okay.
for Jeff Sessions and that group, and you're asking actually a great question.
Okay.
Because the Department of Justice is always nailed as the group of like, they're watching me, they're gonna come at me, they're gonna take me in the middle of the night, right?
Right.
And he's been portrayed on the news as he's gonna come get you. Think
he's
of it
like the
this
boogeyman.
way, I'm gonna do it real basic for you on the federal level.
God.
Department of Justice
Mhm.
is your executive branch, right?
Right.
So what is the executive branch to do? What is their overall, no matter what department I am? Even the president, what do I do? What's my role, executive branch? Go into those 101 classes. They are to enforce,
Right.
right?
Right.
They don't make law.
Right.
So, that's okay.
I'm so sorry.
That is okay. So they are there to enforce the law.
Right.
So they're not there to make them. So he can't go ahead and mandate and make something that currently isn't there.
Okay.
Where it gets slippery, and with the president too, with executive orders, is if they're instituting something,
Mhm.
it's already been in play by Congress or a previous administration. They might have taken it away, but it's still not off the books as a law to enforce.
Yeah, cause like
They
there's like.
choose to enforce it or not, but
Right,
it's
'cause-
still a law.
Yeah, cause like Obama passed this memorandum that told the DEA and stuff to not be so harsh, like in places like Colorado about marijuana.
Right, so he can control the enforcement,
Alright.
but not the law of it.
Right, I got you. No,
Same
I
with
understand.
immigration.
Okay.
People do that with it,
Sure,
same thing.
so it's kinda like a boogeyman thing, it's like,
It's
oh,
the law.
right,
Yeah.
they overhype it.
Now they are the boss of the law, so
Right.
they can decide to enact it or not.
Sure.
But Congress made the law for them to follow. Does that make sense? So federally, they know, at the end of the day, most Americans, when you take the whole United States, still are not on board with it. Sorry. Gotta go to a place that is on board with it then. So the DEA is gonna keep enforcing it. Now, will they get stricter possibly? It might feel that way, because in this administration, you're seeing a lot more Justice Department stuff, right?
Law and order.
Maybe immigration, maybe DEA, maybe gang violence, they're like hot on the list. Because this administration's ideology is to enforce laws heavier. They're not making them, they're on the books. And if somebody else was loose about it, it'll show that contrast dramatically, right?
Mhm.
So that is gonna be a priority in this next couple of years. They can make it harder because they gotta follow these guidelines, right? That maybe they didn't and kind of looked the other way before.
Mhm.
That can cost me more money too.
Right.
So if I am opening a facility, they can also squeeze play you. Unfortunately, if you have to follow the guidelines, dot your i's, cross your t's now, that now it's gonna cost me too much money and I didn't budget for it,
Right.
and they go under, right? So they know that, yes, and they can do that. Import, export. Are you talking internationally or
Yeah.
Yes.
as sanctions or all the above?
We were thinking all of the above, we just
Okay.
kinda just threw it out there as a general.
There's a lot.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
international, you're talking about.
Yeah.
Basically, yes.
Yeah.
So we're not gonna look for like Kansas
Mm.
going to like China with corn by itself road.
No.
Right.
No.
Okay, that would be fascinating though. You never know.
Well, I mean, wouldn't that still be under federal? I mean, like, a state couldn't just be like, hey, I'm going to ignore an embargo with like whoever and just trade with them.
They can't do anything internationally.
Right.
They have to do it as a sovereign nation. So they could propose something
Mhm.
on the House floor or the Senate floor and on behalf of Kansas to do that. But they have to get all the other states to jump on board with that, which can make it difficult for many laws. You know, one state has a high demand, the other doesn't. We'll talk about. Okay, so international diplomacy, like in what? Is this you guys get?
No.
That's us. Just like, I guess, talking more like peace and war, stuff like that.
Like treaties,
Treaties,
Mhm.
yeah.
decision to go to war, that
Mhm.
kind of stuff? Yep, absolutely. Again, we're not gonna see Idaho say, let's go take down North Korea ourselves, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, good luck.
I don't wanna see that, it's very Red
15
Dawn.
people.
Yeah.
There's Montana on there, it's the original Red Dawn. If it was Russia, but it's the original. Currency, what are we talking about with currency?
I mean, like a
I
unified.
was gonna say, see a different color mark.
Yeah.
Okay.
A unified currency for, everyone.
So we don't go across borders, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and we gotta exchange money.
And setting like interest rates and printing it and destroying it.
The overall rules to currency throughout your nation, absolutely. Military. That you guys get?
Yeah.
Okay. Just overall, or,
Like, protection of, the states as a whole, cultivating it.
and I'm just gonna jump here, cause you have military and then you have over here National Guard.
Yeah.
How are those two in relation? Or what are their roles? You guys know?
On the federal level, you have the active duty military and the reservists. And then you have the National Guard. So the Guard is mostly there to protect like the state. They don't usually go. They don't go like abroad. They just stay with the state. Where the active duty, or the reservists, they go wherever the federal government needs them.
And they're in each state.
Was that?
Just as you said too, they're in each state.
Yeah.
They're.
Right.
They've actually been deploying the National Guard overseas more than the Army Reserves for the past several years.
Yeah.
When they run short. Yeah, they do. They're created for domestic, but they can tap into them, absolutely. But their primary is domestic. And the thought was, if you go abroad, you have to have somebody behind to defend
Right.
as well. And they also are used for natural disasters,
Yeah.
shortages, things like that. So they're also there for community efforts as well, and things of that nature.
Like the recent water crisis, not too long ago, they've been sending National Guards just from around nearby states, just to hand out bottles of water and just do stuff like that.
They're also there, you've seen them when things get out of hand, protesting.
Yeah, whenever riots, yeah.
People don't like to see it. And then your groups are gonna go, oh, the military's after us now. They're there to keep the peace, right? What's interesting is when they come in versus police departments, and they could be, just difference of uniform and so forth, the reaction to it is very different. One's not more brutal than the other. It's just very interesting to watch behaviorally when you see them come in. And that's the reason they use them. They know people will react differently,
Yeah.
good or bad. They can get bad press. Oh, you're putting the military against its own people, you know what I mean? You'll hear that too. So it's a risk sometimes. They don't like to do it haphazardly, and they like to have them in the background versus the forefront. Your state and local, down to the state and local police will be in the front lines still. They're there to more corral.
We use the National Guard for stuff like that, more for like, hey, this is not just gonna use the police department, we need business.
Oh, yeah, when you need to settle it quick.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, Charlottesville.
And it's very visual, right? You see
Mhm.
Humvees coming through your town.
Yeah, it's just-
Mm-hmm.
People like it or not, they're like, I think they mean business now. It's different than the baton.
It's wild because like
So-
some police departments are like they look more military than the National Guard.
Oh,
sometimes.
yeah, depending on your budgets.
Yeah, like one time I looked out, the Easton Police Department was doing a raid and they had like the whole.
Oh, they have battle gear.
They had the
Yeah.
urban assault vehicle
Oh,
out,
yeah.
the SWAT thing, and the whole.
And some have outsourced from the same private corporations that build for the military. It's interesting. And sometimes you have to ask yourself if that's where we're at. You know, is that a good thing? Social Security. What about Social Security? I read a troubling article the other day.
It's part of the national federal budget, correct?
It is.
Mhm.
Is
that-
it there? I would say no,
No, yeah.
but it's supposed to
No,
be,
yeah.
yeah.
No, so isn't it ran by the federal government?
Yes. It is an entitlement program. People don't like to lump it in there. They're like, no, it's not. Yes, it is. It's still an entitlement program when they're doing the budget, one of the largest of the budget, but same with Medicaid. However, it's run out.
What article did you?
My mother is spending mine.
I'm gonna say it was gonna run out by like 2020, they were kind of projecting.
Yeah.
Yeah, they said 2024, it's gone completely, in the trillions in debt.
It's cause for a long time they had like, it was
It
like.
was not modernized either.
And they used it like a slush fund, like every time they had like a leak somewhere, they would dip into that. and they
You
would
got it.
Stick gum in the hole and they're
There's
like,
no
oh. it's-"
accountability to borrow from this department to that department.
And they never.
Right.
Nobody, yeah,
You also allowed laws that could dip into it early,
cause
and
people
you had
couldn't save.
unemployment happen that people could dip into.
Yeah.
So the market also,
That's like the SSI checks, like when you're like, when somebody's family died and they get that.
my advice to folks is,
Save your home shit.
and it's not a lot, I think people honestly think they're gonna get paid the same as they are now when they retire,
No.
and relying on this. This is poverty.
Mhm.
It is, per
Yeah.
month.
Yeah.
You get this as a nice tchotchke, but you
Mhm.
better have an investment plan to retire or a pension, because you
Right.
won't be able to live off of that, even
Nope.
if you do get it. So that's why I tell people, when you get a job, make sure it has a retirement plan
Right.
attached to it that's more hefty to you than the salary itself,
Mhm.
is what comes with your salary.
What about like income tax, is that state or federal?
Income tax, that's state or federal.
Oh,
Yeah.
What's like an example of like one or the other with income tax? Like an everyday. And states vary with taxes,
Yeah.
because you got taxes on both sides, I might as
School
well know.
district tax?
School districts, Pennsylvania, most of your school, almost all of it, about 90% at this point of your property tax
Property
goes
tax.
to the schools.
Yeah.
I got kinda hit by the IRS one year
Oh, no.
because I did my federal income tax and my state income tax, but I didn't do my local income tax.
Oh, yeah,
And I
that
had
happens
like,
to a lot of
I
people.
didn't get in trouble for it, but I had to pay that, and it was like a year late. I was like, why did they wait a year to tell me? I didn't even know I needed to do
Did
this.
they get interest on it or no?
I don't know. It was a couple years ago. It was like
If they have
I think
record
it was
of notices you haven't paid, they'll put interest on it as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. But it wasn't that much. I think it was like under $50.
I was gonna say, it's probably around $50.
I don't know how much it was actually.
State's a couple hundred, if you
Yeah,
missed.
yeah, it definitely
Yeah.
wasn't state, but I know it was local, so I was like, oh my god, so now every year I'm like, okay, gotta make sure I have my state, federal, local, I don't wanna get by the IRS again. I
Um,
went down there.
I know class is ending. Read into chapter 1 if you haven't. Like I said, bypass things that are kind of, and we'll get more in depth about the roles of each next time.